Hello, everyone. Welcome to Random Encounter 258 or 258. My name is Jono Logan, and this is the very first show of 2023. We are, however, recording it in 2022, so I'm not, terrified that the year is over yet. I'm just getting terrified to the point where it's going to be New Year's very soon. Scary thought for me. Anyway, so joining us for this episode is Caitlin.
Hey guys, and I'm not terrified that it's 2023 at all. In fact, here's your first Chocobo bleep, Jono. 2022.
The first Chocobo bleep of 2023. Abe, do you have any thoughts that involve me bleeping them out with Chocobos?
I think that entire thing should just be a bleep.
Yeah, that's what actually, it's exactly what I'm going to do. Okay, well, did you both have good holidays? Because the holiday season is finally wrapped up. And mine was really, really good in a lot of ways. It was a pretty standard one. It was just spent with Amanda's family here in Toronto. Same thing we do every year, really. And I have no complaints about that. You know, spend the whole day with family and open presents and get a good haul of stuff. I got some really cool video game books this year that I'm excited to dig into. So yeah, I had a good holiday.
Mine was good. It was quiet. But sometimes I think those are the best holidays. So it's just me and my mom hanging out all day, exchanging gifts, having dinner, watching movies, that kind of thing.
That sounds really nice.
Yeah, mine was also relatively quiet. We didn't really go visit family or anything, and we just moved, so we don't live close to any of our family anymore. But that's okay. It was nice to have a quiet Christmas.
That can be a blessing, depending on what your family is like.
Yeah, a little bit. But we're going to see Tenacious D on New Year's Eve, so our holiday's just about to start, as far as I'm concerned.
That is kind of awesome.
I'm jealous.
Yeah. You live in a place where all of the cool acts go.
I mean, cool is a relative term, of course, but I think it's cool, yeah.
I mean, if I was living in Vegas, I would be trying to get to see, Penn and Teller nonstop.
Oh, man, yeah. Every day. See those the billboards all the time.
Well, another reason why I think everyone enjoys the holidays who is a video game fan is they finally have a little bit of time off to actually play some of the games that they wish they could have played earlier in the year. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do a little bit of a video game wrap-up of some of the games that were at the end of 2022, so one November, one December. And we're going to start with one that was released at the very beginning of December, and that is Chained Echoes. Now, this is what I would consider, this is a late addition to what I would consider to be a really excellent year for RPGs. Chained Echo is a retro-style RPG that honestly, at least as far as I've gotten, doesn't feel in any way like a throwback. Now, Caitlin, you reviewed it for the site. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Chained Echoes?
Yeah, so Chained Echoes, you'll notice if you look at any pictures, it immediately sort of has that feeling of a classic SNES RPG with its retro sort of 16-bit style graphics. But one of the other things that you'll probably read or hear about it before you do anything else is you'll hear that it was made largely by one single person, Matthias Linde. With the exception of some art, I believe, that he had some help with, and also the music, which is done by the wonderful Eddie Marinucro, who I'd never heard of before playing this game. So I'm really glad that I got introduced to his work through Chained Echoes. Everything is done by Linde, and it's kind of insane how good the game is and how well everything works, considering that it's a single person. Like this, there's more stuff here, there's more quality to it than you might find in other games that are developed by whole teams. So it's incredible.
Yeah, the scale of this game, I would argue, is, well, just like you said, pretty much equal to the scale of any late era SNES RPG or early era PlayStation game.
Yeah, and that was kind of the inspiration, the idea behind this, is Linde really wanted to create sort of a love letter to classic RPGs, not just SNES RPGs, but you'll see references to PS1 RPGs. There are even references to Final Fantasy XII, so you've got some PS2 love in there as well. But it doesn't feel like it's just supposed to be like a copy of, these characters and those plot devices and these graphics. It feels like its own game. It feels unique, and it feels very interesting throughout, even though you'll often see characters or hear music that definitely feel like they're intended to sort of tickle the nostalgia nerve in everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for instance, early on in the game, you get introduced to all of the different characters one by one, and each character will get sort of their own little section of the introduction where you learn a little bit about who they are and what they're doing, and then eventually everybody comes together and teams up. And that screams to me very Final Fantasy IX style, with how Final Fantasy IX would frequently introduce one character and then jump to another character, and then sometimes even after you sort of had the party come together, they would split up for a time and you would follow different characters. That
Mm-hmm.
sort of ensemble feel to the cast is definitely here, but none of these characters, outside of maybe having a very basic archetype that you've seen in other games, feels like, oh well, this is just Zidane with a different colored tail, or that's just Garnet with a different name, or something like that. They all still feel like, unique characters and unique settings and things like that. And it's really amazing to have that sort of feel of, I can totally see what kind of RPGs Linda is referencing, what were his favorites, because I can see the threads, but I don't feel like I'm just like rehashing Final Fantasy IX or Xenogears or Chrono Trigger or anything like that.
Yeah, none of this feels like a rehash. If anything, it evokes those games in many ways,
Yeah.
but it doesn't feel like a one-to-one copy. 7 years of development on this by one man. Whew.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm sure that he is over the moon that it's finally out, and that people can enjoy it. And I certainly hope that he'll be thinking about maybe making more games, because he's the dude is talented. I was just gonna say, like, he's definitely, when you start playing this game, like I said, you may not believe that one person did all this, but
It's
pretty much
unbelievable.
it's largely one person.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Now I'm just gonna say, like I said, I started playing this yesterday. Thus far, I've only gotten to like the point where all of the characters have gotten together, and I gotta say, holy hell, I'm sold. It's just fantastic. Um, it's so good. It's so good, and it's not just. I mean, it really does hit me where I live in terms of. Well, let's just start talking about the graphics of the game. They're gorgeous, like stunning pixel art. Some of the best pixel art I think I've seen in years.
Yeah, I was amazed by the amount of detail going in here, like all the little things, especially when you're out in like the fields outside of towns. There's tall grass, and that moves as you walk through it, or blows occasionally in the wind. There are lots of little cute pixel animals that either move across the screen or animate. There's lots of ambient noise in every area that you hear the frogs or the birds or whatnot. And it's amazing how dense some of these environments look, and how beautiful they are, just despite the retro feel. Like, there's I feel like there's more sort of like artistic design and beauty to some of these environments than games that are in 3D and trying to go more for that realism. Like,
Mm.
it's just very, very pretty to look at and to run through. Like, there's a town you can go to early on where they do a lot of farming, and they have fields of like wheat and grain and whatnot. And as you might expect, you run through it and you will see it kind of like shimmer as it does, and the wind will also blow across it, and you'll see a wave of that shimmer. And it's just like, that is a super cool little touch that did not need to be there. And I think we wouldn't have looked twice if it wasn't. Like, it would just be, oh, hey, there's some grain. But to throw that in there, super cool touch. And again, it's like, these are large areas. They're multiple screens, so you have you go from screen to screen to make up an entire area. Most areas are basically a grid of 9 blocks. So each block of that grid is a different screen. But they're huge. There's lots to explore. There are hidden caves to find. Eventually, you get your mechs. Yeah, they're called sky armors. And if you're thinking something like Xenogears, it's basically Xenogears. You can fly. Eventually, you can fly around in mechs, and that will give you the ability to find even more hidden areas. And you get rewarded for that by finding treasure chests that have like better gear for you to use, or you can fill out this whole sort of think the license board from Final Fantasy 12, but better, like not stupid and annoying to use. That's the reward board, and that basically is this little sort of game board looking menu you can go into, where whenever you say beat a certain number of monsters or find a certain number of hidden caves or do this quest or that quest, a tile gets checked off, and you can then get a reward for completing that specific thing. And then you can also put together chains that get you rewards on top of those. And those rewards are like, for instance, you might get a special item that you need to pray at these shrines that you'll find periodically that give you class emblems. Because yes, there is a class system in this game. So the sheer number of systems that are in this game, and all of them work well. Again, like I said, it's just like I was super giddy at various different points whenever a new system got introduced. And I was like, holy crap, this game has that? Oh my God, I want to play more.
Yeah, and the nice thing about it is they are not overly complicated or ill-explained, or they're there, and the systems work really, really well with the overall gameplay. They seem to fit.
Yeah.
Something that I really like, we were talking about how the game, it doesn't like directly reference it. And the graphics are great, but one of the things I really do like about the visual design of the game is it doesn't look like a specific retro game. Like I actually, like I for example, let me see, Cosmic Star Heroine, for example. If you look at it, it looks like Chrono Trigger. It's a beautiful, beautiful pixel art, but the graphics really evoke Chrono Trigger. Whereas this thing has let's talk about the battle system. The battle system takes place on the world map. Like you see enemies when you run into them, and you fight them on the world map. It doesn't go to another battle screen, but it doesn't look like Chrono Trigger in any other way. It's just kind of referencing that.
Yeah. So, for the most part, there aren't random encounters in this game. You will see enemies on the field, and you can avoid them, although some encounters are in like dungeons are forced. But most of them, you will see the enemy before you engage. And then once you engage, like Jono said, you don't transition. You're fighting on the world map, but then you go into sort of a turn-based style of combat. And at first, you think, okay, turn-based, it's fairly standard. But Chained Echoes introduces a system called the overdrive meter. And that is this meter in the top left corner of the screen that starts in yellow, and then as you go to the right, turns green, and then eventually at the very far end is red. And every action that you or the enemies take moves that meter to the right. So you start in yellow and eventually get to green. And then if you go too far, you go to red. When you hit green, you get some benefits. You take less damage, you do more damage, and your skills cost less TP, tech points. So the goal is to stay in green without going into the red, where you will start taking increased damage. And the way you control the overdrive meter, there's several different ways you can, but the primary way you're supposed to control it is there will be a random skill type. All skills have different types, so like physical attacks, magic attacks, utility, that kind of thing. Using a skill that matches that random type will lower the bar, will move it back to the left. So you have the basic turn-based combat, and it works the way you'd expect. You and the enemies take turns. You have a Final Fantasy X style sort of display that shows you, who's taking the next turn and so on and so forth, so you can kind of plan.
Yeah, and it looks very similar. You have like attack, skills, item, and defend. Those are your options.
Yeah, and you have the standard kind of like you have physical attacks that can do single or AoE targeting. You have your standard array of elemental attacks. You have buffs, debuffs. You can steal items, poison enemies, blah, blah, blah. But on top of all that, on top of keeping your characters alive, damaging enemies, blah, 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 now you have to balance the overdrive meter. And that sort of adds an element of strategy to a otherwise fairly standard turn-based combat system, because now I have to think about, okay, the overdrive meter is getting pretty far to the right. I need to lower it before I go into the red. And I need to do a magic spell. Well, I better make sure that I use Len, my character, who's got a lot of magic attacks, to lower it. And the game gives you plenty of other ways to lower it. One character gets a skill that is basically designed just to lower it. You get items that you can use to lower the bar if you don't have a skill that matches what it's asking for. You also, every character has a limit break, basically. It's called an ultra move. That most of them are just super damaging attacks, and a few of them are more utility based. And using those lowers the overdrive meter. And eventually, when you get more than 4 members in your active party, you can swap out party members. So eventually, you will get, well, a full party is 8, but you get more than 8 people eventually in your total party. So you will eventually find that essentially for every battle you have 8 characters that you can make use of. You can swap between different characters, and that will also lower the overdrive meter a little bit. So it's, like I said, it adds an element of strategy. And I think once you get a full 8-person crew, it really starts to sing. I think in the earlier part of the game, when you don't have as many characters and you don't have as many skill types because you're still learning skills, it can feel a little bit punishing, because sometimes you get to the point where you have to use a move that doesn't have a use. Like Sienna is your thief, and so she comes by default with a steal skill. And the game is, there's so many little, quality of life things in this game. So for instance, you don't have to learn whether or not an enemy has something you can steal. The game tells you very clearly, this enemy has something you can steal, this enemy doesn't. But you might find early on that you have to use, say, her steal skill, which is a utility skill, because otherwise you're going to go into the red and you don't have anybody else available at the moment who has a utility skill, and you don't have any items that can trigger the utility skill to lower it. And that can occasionally feel a little punishing. Like it's almost like, instead of doing what I want to do, I have to do this skill just to lower the overdrive bar. But like I said, once you get more characters and once you get more skills, you start having more options. And the game does have a couple of accessibility options that can adjust the difficulty of battles. And one of those options adjusts the size of the overdrive bar. I eventually turned it down to the wide setting, which makes the green section the largest that it can possibly be. But if you want an extra challenge, you can also make it narrow so that it's shorter. And you can also do things like increase or lower enemy aggressiveness and enemy stats. So you can sort of customize your difficulty experience as you see fit.
Yeah, I think that the battle system is, thus far for me anyway, really strong. Like, I actually like this kind of, I guess, overdrive management, where you do need to consider what you are doing and how close you are and keep an eye on that bar. Another way that I guess the battle system differs a little bit from a lot of other retro RPGs, and certainly a lot of their inspirations, is the way that your party levels up. Whereas in other games, you'll get experience points, and once you reach a certain amount of them, you level up. And might get new spells, and you get like stat boosts and things like that. That's not quite how it goes in this game.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and I think my initial reaction to it, I didn't like it, but the more I played, the more I realized that it's really kind of brilliant. So you don't get experience from battles; you get skill points from battles, and you can use skill points to level up your skills, which can make you more powerful in the sense of it makes your attacks hit harder, or it makes your heals heal more. And in that sense, you can sort of grind a little bit to improve yourself. But most of your improvement comes from getting these things called grimoire shards. they're only given to you basically when you beat a boss. The game says that you can get them from completing quests, I think, in the tutorial, but I don't recall ever actually getting one that was just from a quest and not from a quest that involved fighting a boss. And some of the reward board rewards are also grimoire shards, so you can get a few outside of fighting. But because they're largely controlled by bosses, and because the bosses are largely controlled by your progression in the story, you can't really grind and outlevel the enemies in the area of the story you're at. Your grimoire shard level, which is displayed in the main menu, sort of like a party level, is basically going to be controlled by where you are in the story. Now, the way it works in terms of like your stats and your skills is every grimoire shard gives every character a point that they can spend on an active skill, that's a thing you can use in battle, a passive skill that you can set, or just an immediate stat boost. And as you spend these points, every once in a while, you'll also get a notification that, this character also got like an extra HP point or an extra attack point, sort of functioning the way that, in a traditional experience system, when you level up, you'll see the character gets, a few random stat boosts or whatever. But obviously it's not really random. It's sort of like, the game has an algorithm that says every X amount of levels, this character is going to get these stats whenever you spend points. So that's how you get the sort of traditional leveling up experience, but it controls it so that you can't just power your way through an area to the point where you just completely trash all the enemies. It keeps the challenge level pretty level throughout the game, instead of giving the player the ability to lower it through grinding. So now the flip side of that is that you will run into regular enemies that still can kind of hand you your ass. And that's both good and bad. It's mostly good because I liked the idea that I couldn't just sleep through regular encounters. But I mean, I've seen people playing the game now commenting about it, and that can be a little bit surprising if you're not expecting it. One of the things, though, that obviously I think maybe wouldn't be as quite as obvious to players, and I'd say if you're having that kind of trouble, really explore your environments. Go out of the way, fully explore everything that you can, because a lot of what you'll find is gear is going to really help you deal with enemies in new areas. If you haven't beaten a boss and gotten a grimoire shard that lets you power yourself up a little bit. There's so many chests out there that have new equipment, to the point where mostly I almost never found myself buying equipment from stores because I already either found the equipment in the field or I found better equipment in the field. So if you really explore, you'll get better weapons and better gear, and that will help the enemies not be as punishing as you're progressing through an area, because usually you're going to progress through most of an area without a whole lot of boss fights or any boss fights. So you might go through an entire area and not really get a grimoire shard, through a boss fight for a while. So the key is really to seek out new equipment, make sure you upgrade that equipment. There is equipment upgrading. You can,
of course, there's equipment upgrading system because, he had time for that.
Yeah. Not only is there equipment upgrading, but there's also equipment customization, because you can collect crystals while you're out and about, and then you can upgrade those crystals and slot them into your weapons and armors for all sorts of bonus effects, like increasing your stats or giving your attacks a certain element to trigger enemy weaknesses. And for the most part, that system works well. It gets the further in the game you get, the more of an annoyance it becomes, because you have a ton of crystals to try and deal with, and there are some details with the system that can be a little annoying. I appreciated it overall, though. It was nice to have that sort of customization option. And again, I wasn't expecting it at all. I mean, like I said earlier, all of these added systems that are the kind of thing that you would normally expect in, a standard AAA RPG that has a 50 or 100 person team behind it. All, you will find stuff like that throughout this game. And I haven't even talked about mech combat, because there's mech combat, and there's an airship that you get, and a world map, and base building. Eventually you get an island, and you start a clan, and you can go around the world, Skies of Arcadia style, and recruit people.
In the back of my head, I just heard Zach enters the chat, just really excited about a Suikoden style, being able to build up your base and things like that.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah. Like I said, so far I'm just enjoying the hell out of this. Everything from the combat systems to the environments, some pretty damn good dungeon design. Like nothing feels... There's lots of hidden stuff in the environments, but nothing feels like unfairly hidden. As long as you poke around long enough, you're probably going to be able to find it. Now, thus far, I'm really enjoying the story, and the characters are really interesting. But in your review, and I've heard this elsewhere, one of the weaknesses of the game is the writing. That's not necessarily saying the overall story or the character development or things. It's literally the dialogue and things like that. Why didn't it land for you?
Yeah, so the issues with the dialogue, I think, and this is just like, it's not that it's bad, it's that there's a fair amount of mistakes and awkward phrasings, and it's the kind of thing, the kind of mistakes that you would make if English isn't your first language. Because honestly, they're the kind of mistakes that I made when I was studying a foreign language. It's things that aren't always super clear until you really, like, you're immersed and you're using the language a lot, like word choices where you have two different words that technically mean the same thing, but context would determine which one you use, and using the other one gets your meaning across but just sounds weird to a native English speaker.
The unwritten rules of language.
Yeah, like everything it's perfectly understandable. Like there's nothing, it's not like it's so bad that you can't understand what's being said. It's just, it comes off occasionally, or more than occasionally really, as being a little awkward. And it's like, it's a shame that they maybe couldn't get a native speaker to do a pass on this script to clean up some of it so that it reads a little bit better.
Just do a localization polish.
Yeah. But again, this is a one-man team, and I believe Linda is German, I think, is what I've read online. Yes. So I'm assuming it's not his first language. Although, I've seen he's in interviews, so it's not like he's, this is not like a third or fourth year student of a foreign language kind of thing. It's just the little things. It's the nuances that you really get once you've been using the language and you've been living using the language. So
yeah, it's like you said, in the review you say it's a little stiff in places. The dialogue is a little stiff.
But again, one-man team, it's perfectly serviceable, and I still really enjoyed the story despite those issues. So, it's not, I would not say to pass on this game just because of the dialogue itself. The story is great. Like, the political sort of war-torn nature of this continent that you explore is really cool. I also wasn't really expecting that. I was thinking it was going to be more like, maybe, sort of typical ancient evil fantasy, and there are elements of that come in later, but like there's a lot that feels like, sort of a tactics or a 12, I don't know if it's 12, like Ivalice-esque kind of political machinations. There's interesting characters with hidden backgrounds that you learn over the course of the game. There's some interesting lore that you learn as you progress through the game, both through the main story, and if you do a little digging and you find these little lore books that sort of explain the larger world. So it's got a lot of good stuff, and it hits all the notes that you would expect, but it was still enjoyable from start to finish, despite some of the writing issues.
Yeah, and I mean, another nice thing about this game is that it does have a lot of it. It looks like a classic, but it has modern quality of life features like You can save anywhere. There is auto saving, so you're not going to lose your progress if you crash or something like that. If you die in a battle, you can restart that battle instantly. And in fact, it does something which I love. You can not only restart the battle instantly, it doesn't boot you straight back into the battle. It boots you into the
menu.
Into your menu screen.
Yeah.
So you can actually like change your attacks and maybe equip different things and things like this. So it won't just lock you into a never-ending, impossible to win battle because of the way the game scales. There's always a way to win. You just have to figure it out.
Yeah. There's so many little, like you said, so many little modern conveniences. Like it's such a great experience because you can see the inspiration and the love letter to the classics, but it doesn't also mean that you had to deal with the annoyances of classic RPGs. There's so many modern quality of life improvements in there that make it a lot more enjoyable to enjoy the story and the gameplay.
Well, the game has been getting quite a bit of buzz over the last few weeks, but I have noticed, some people there are a lot of retro RPGs out there nowadays. It's kind of, pixel art is a big thing. So if there's anyone listening to this podcast who's still a little bit on the fence about giving this game a try, what would you say to them, Caitlin?
Oh, I mean, I would say buy it. Yeah. I would say give it a try. I would say it's $25 on Steam, and I think it's matched on Switch.
It's also on Xbox Game Pass.
It's also, yes, that's true. If you have Game Pass, it's free for you. But no, it's $25. It is less than half the cost of a typical new AAA game coming out on current platforms these days, and it's honestly probably better in a lot of ways than a lot of those games that you could be spending more money on. So
no, I'm playing it on PC. I think this game would be incredible on Switch, though, or I guess a Steam Deck if you have one. It just seems like the kind of game which would be really nice to carry it around. It would really remind me of a lot of the good old days of RPGs on the GBA.
Oh, it is very good on. I mean, I pretty much played all of it on my Steam Deck because it is the perfect kind of game to be playing on your Steam Deck, I think.
Mm-hmm. Well, as soon as we finish this podcast, I am going to be getting up and getting myself a nice cup of tea, and I'm going to be sitting down and playing more of this game.
Good.
Yep. So I can tell anyone out there, my opinion, it's right in line with Caitlin's, which is if you're an RPG fan who has a fondness for classic RPGs, give this a shot, because this is one of the retro RPGs that doesn't just hit the mark. It really evokes how I was feeling when I was playing those games on my SNES or PlayStation. So I would give it a try.
So I played the demo. So should I, and I enjoyed the battle system. So should I expect that, I thought it was okay, and the story didn't exactly draw me in, but I expect that the game probably grows into itself a bit more as you get past the demo point.
Yeah. You get access. I mean, like, it opens up a lot after that demo point. There's still some more story between where the demo ends and where it opens up. But once it opens up, you get, your first sort of like Xenoblade-esque kind of like I can go anywhere and I can fight big monsters kind of thing. And you get access to more systems that open up the combat system a little bit. I mean, in the demo, let's see, I guess the most that you have access to at any one point is 4 characters, and that's in the prologue, because the demo ends right after the first stretch of the sewer. So by the time you get to where, like, say, Jono is, which isn't that far after where the prologue ends, you have 6 characters, so you can start switching people out. You have more skills, you get the reward board, you can start exploring a big area. You can find random little you don't get side quests yet. You'll get side quests. There are side quests eventually. They give you they have a whole little quest name and title card and everything, but you can find random people in the area that need you to do things and get rewards from that. So it opens up a lot, and the story starts to build up its intrigue a little bit.
The political intrigue really starts to hit right after the sewer.
Well, maybe I'll check it out when I'm not in the middle of some other long games.
Yeah, well, you're always in the middle of a long game because I'm always making you play them.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, let's move on now from a game that looks like it could have been on the SNES to one that actually was. And funny enough, this is also a game that features mechs. And this is Front Mission First Remake. Abe, you reviewed this. This came out in November. And it's literally a remake of the original Front Mission for the SNES that came out in 1995.
That's right. Actually, not the SNES, only the Super Famicom.
The Super Famicom, yes, you're
That's
right.
Yeah, because outside of Japan, we didn't get it until 2007 on the DS.
Nintendo DS. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Front Mission is, from what I kind of consider that golden age of Square RPGs, from the Super SNES and the PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2.
Good old Squaresoft.
Yeah, I miss those days. But it's very much from that time that Chained Echoes is trying to evoke to a degree. Except that instead of relying on the past, Forever Entertainment, who developed and published Front Mission First Remake, decided to go a different direction and completely overhaul the graphics. Even though the original game is pretty much still intact. In contrast to Chained Echoes, Front Mission is not particularly intuitive. It's very much a game from 1995.
Product of its time.
Yeah. It was among the first strategy RPGs that Square did. I don't know if it might be the first one that was released of kind of their high quality strategy RPG releases. It came out the same year as Tactics Ogre in Japan, but actually a few months before. So this is a very early strategy RPG, and the developers don't go easy on you. To be honest, they tell you the basics. You're playing on this, your grid, Tactics Ogre grid type grid. If you played either that or Final Fantasy Tactics, you know what I'm talking about.
Though it did come out first.
Yeah. But Front Mission is actually a little bit more similar to Fire Emblem, really. Anyway, so yeah, they give you the very bare basics on how to attack and how to move and things like that. But the game itself it's a little bit dense, and it's pretty complex. After your kind of introductory tutorial type missions, you just get thrown into a pit of these mech parts, and you're kind of just told, "No, figure it out." Front Mission also features mechs, much like Chained Echoes. These are called here. They're called Wanzers. Kind of evoking World War II a little bit with the German Panzer tanks with the name. And the mechs are essentially, drawing from Mobile Suit Gundam and Evangelion, these giant walking battle suits. And even though we love to play with them, I feel like writers actually use them as story devices to tell anti-war stories. We're not really supposed to get that excited, but they make great toys too. So,
well, I was actually going to comment on that, the toy aspect, because the graphics of the original Front Mission, it's a gorgeous looking game for its time. It was 1995, so it was the height of Squaresoft's graphic prowess on the SNES. Character designs and everything were gorgeous. This forgoes that it gives it a complete polygonal overhaul, and everything. Okay, you mentioned this in the review, and I'm just looking at some of these screenshots. Everything looks just a little bit plasticky. They kind of look like toys that you get in a cereal box.
Yeah, I actually thought the Forever Entertainment did a pretty spectacular job with the graphics.
That wasn't a criticism of. That was just like it just kind of has that look to it.
Oh,
like
right,
almost a little bit diorama-y in like the overhead there.
Oh yeah, the maps definitely are like kind of the diorama. And if you play on the classic mode, it's not exactly like the original game, but it looks a lot like, so if someone had developed this game originally for the PlayStation 1, it looks a lot like that. Like you can imagine it would have looked.
Yeah.
But actually, the plastic part of the robots was it's kind of explained in the game a little bit, as it's referencing these mechs from like I said, Gundam and Evangelion. But Front Mission is a war story. It's about these two warring coalitions in the future at the end of this century. And it's the OCU, which essentially is vaguely is Japan, and the UCS, which is less vaguely the United States.
East versus West, classic story.
Yeah, and they're fighting on this little island in the Pacific Ocean. But there is the mention that since this is an ongoing war that's been going on for decades, that these mechs have been developed to be really able to be cheaply produced, and the parts are cheaply made so that they can be interchangeable. And there's a lot less concern from either of the major coalitions about pilot safety and the mech's longevity in general. And so the plasticky part actually kind of makes sense because they are cheaply mass produced. Like walking trash cans, basically.
Yeah, I can see that. The funny thing about this game for me is that for the SNES especially, from what I understand, there's a lot of customization options. Like you mentioned that the game really doesn't tell you anything, and there are a lot of mech customization in this game with different parts and things like that, right?
Yeah, and it's part of the things that the game doesn't tell you, but there's several different types of attacks and several different types of guns and missiles. And a large part of learning how to play this game is learning to gaining kind of intuition about when certain things are most effective. And so, you're building your mechs around, whatever your specific strategy is going to be. There is customization, and all the parts look, they have a visual representation, which is pretty cool. So, your mechs are going to evolve and grow visually over time as they grow, as you build them up more.
Yeah, and the combat of the game is pretty traditional grid turn-based combat kind of thing, right?
Yeah, there's a few more elements added though, because each mech or Wanzer, for each Wanzer they have each of their parts has a separate hit point total. There's the body and each of the arms and the legs. And each of those has their own hit point total. It's a bit tough at the beginning of the game because you can't control which part of the enemy's mechs that you're hitting. But the only way to actually destroy it is to destroy the body. So when you can't you can't choose to aim which part to fire your weapon at, it does come off a bit random, and that has been the biggest criticism I've seen of this game so far, online mostly.
Yeah, why have different body parts if you can't target each one?
Yeah. But like I said, there's a lot to you kind of have to gain like a little bit of an intuition when you for playing Front Mission, and at some point for me it really clicked, and so I was able to do things pretty effectively and know how things were going to turn out. And I felt like a freaking genius when I figured it out. So, and gamers want different things out of games, and it can be nice when the game explains how to do everything, but I also think there's a rewarding aspect that we don't really have as much anymore. That
the law started figuring
it out. Yeah, it's kind of, it feels rewarding. It feels like, oh, I'm smarter than the game. And
take that game.
Right, that's right. There are some tough difficulty spikes, especially weirdly in like the first quarter of the game. But after that, you can pretty much you can pretty much break the game as far as as far as JRPGs usually go. I think it fits pretty firmly in that kind of Square golden age of the 90s.
Now, I remember reading about this. It was, I forget if it was first impressions or if it was in a review or whatnot, but I read that they didn't really bring much in the sense of quality of life improvements to the game.
Yeah, the original 3DS game, it is pretty obtuse in terms of quality of life stuff. The mechs move extremely slowly if when you're making move actions.
Well, it was on the Super Nintendo. It wasn't on the Genesis. If it was on the Genesis, they would have had blast processing, and those mechs would be going.
Yeah.
Sort of the Mega Drive and the Super Famicom.
They didn't have the 3D chip yet, I guess, or whatever it was. But one of the quality of life things that Forever Entertainment did was speed up the mechs. So that was a huge quality of life thing, to be honest.
Can we make them faster? Yeah, that would.
Yeah. They get little jet boot animations, so like they justified why they're moving faster now.
Okay, that's good to know. Also, very random aside, because it's not explained anywhere in Chained Echoes, there is a speed up function in battles. The game never tells you this, but if you use the left trigger, if you're playing with controller, you can speed up battles up to 2 or 3 times faster.
I am glad you mentioned that.
Because you didn't know, right?
Because I had no idea, and now I am excited.
It doesn't tell you! So, plus for having that, minus for not telling you, but the moral of the story is every game should have fast speed up options.
Absolutely.
Every game, and especially remakes and remasters.
Front Mission does actually have that. You can there's like if you played Fire Emblem, if when you go into battle or when 2 units fight each other, it cuts to this this little screen where they attack each other and whatnot. You can turn that off if you want to. If you just want to speed through it a little more.
Oh, so you can turn off cinematics. That's cool.
And there was also, a few quality of life things that I'm told were implemented as part of a new patch that just came out. One particularly being that when you move your mech, you would have to take another step to attack if there was an enemy there. And the new patch apparently condenses that into one step. So it feels a little more like Fire Emblem.
There are worse things than feeling a little bit more like Fire Emblem.
That's right.
Another thing that you mentioned in the review is the music, which is, again, it was Squaresoft of the 90s, so it had a good soundtrack, but it seems like they kept that while still kept the feel of it while updating it.
Well, it's the soundtrack was by Yoko Shimomura, who is a pretty legendary composer. And there was another person who their name escapes me.
Matsuda?
Maybe. But yeah, the other composer was a little bit more of a jazz composer. So you get this nice mix of orchestral battle tunes and then this kind of like funky jazzy type of music that especially the part where you're working on your mech in your workshop. It sounds like something these people would probably listen to in the 2090s. Yeah,
you mentioned there's a couple decades long war. My first thought was, oh, good, something else to look forward to.
Yeah. But the game also includes the original versions of the music, the MIDI versions, and I thought it was really interesting to listen to both. The modern version, it's definitely more hi-fi and clearer and stuff. But the older versions I felt were, I don't know, a bit meatier, like more bass heavy, and it kind of evoked different feelings. So I think it's I would recommend that people listen to both the modern and the original soundtrack to get a feel for which one you prefer better. It's not exactly like how like for the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters, it's not like a full orchestral overhaul from the original sounds, but it's more of a refining kind of making it more high definition sort of, which I don't, I found both versions to be pretty interesting though. So
yeah, and we have a few reviews on the site of the soundtracks. Whole big bunch of them, actually. Many of them by Patrick, which is unsurprising.
Yeah.
He's actually listed on a Wikipedia page about the front mission music. Patrick Gann of RPG Fan described the album as a good sampler for the full soundtrack. ...
He wrote the review for the DS version as well back in 2007. So
well, I can't fault him for that. He has a fondness for RPGs of this period, as many of us do, and obviously he is the most prolific music reviewer that I was about to say that we have, but or maybe ever, not just us. Like, it's crazy the number of soundtracks that Patrick has reviewed over the years, and will continue to review in the future.
But I thought it was pretty interesting to juxtapose Chained Echoes and Front Mission, because Chained Echoes is taking a retro approach. It's a new game that's taking a retro approach as to sort of, at least visually, as to how it's presented. And then Front Mission is like a retro game that got a modernization upgrade, I guess. I'll be honest, I do have the DS game of Front Mission, and I kind of prefer the older style graphics better. I think certainly all of us here, and I think a lot of maybe relatively older RPG fans, we have very fond memories of the 90s, and looking at those older style graphics really brings that time period back for me. So I actually kind of enjoyed the original graphics a little bit better to a degree, though. I mean, that's not to take away from the work that Forever Entertainment did, and like I can see, to a degree why they'd want to update the graphics. They're going to release Front Mission 2 and 3, and I know at least Front Mission 3 was on the PS1. I'm not sure about Front Mission 2 actually, but that's at least the polygonal style, and so I can see why they'd want kind of a more uniform look for those 3 games. But I think the older style graphics give it a little bit more character. That's that make it a little bit more unique from those other 2 games.
Mm-hmm. Front Mission 2, incidentally, also never got a Western release. Actually, it's never had a Western release. Not even a DS. It just has the Super Famicom, or it just has the PlayStation release.
Yeah. So when the remake comes out, that'll be a new release for us. Yeah.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. So I mean, there's going to be a lot to look forward to, hopefully, for the future of this series. At least the future of the past of this series.
Right. I mean, hey, hopefully they'll go ahead and do 4 and 5 while they're at it. Which would be great, because 5 also didn't come out here. So
The last entry in this series was 2010. Oh wait, no, there was a spin-off, Left Alive.
Yeah. If you want to talk about Left Alive,
that
I don't think anyone does.
Let's not. Let's. Okay, the last one was 2010. Front Mission
Left Alive exists. The end.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So it's been over a decade since the last full entry of this series. So, and I mean, right now, strategy RPGs, tactical RPGs are really, really popular, with some big releases that have just come out, and more that are coming out next year. So who knows? We might see another entry in this.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, I want to thank you both for coming by and talking about these 2 games, especially after the holidays. I know that this is the immediate week after the holidays, and that can be a fairly exhausting time. Before we go, I just wanted to add a fun discussion question and just ask you, hey, Did you pick anything up during the Steam Winter Sale or from any of the other storefronts over the holiday break that you're looking forward to playing?
I have not, although I realize that there's a very good chance I'm going to get Harvestella before the sale ends, because I really want to play Harvestella on my deck, as I have heard reliable intel that it runs very well on the Steam Deck, which is probably way better than it runs on Switch, where it runs at typical low, less than ideal res and maybe probably not even 30 FPS. So yeah, if I get anything, it's probably going to be Harvestella.
Cool.
I was actually gifted a couple games on Steam. I received the rest of the To the Moon series. I've only played the first game.
Oh yeah,
nice. But yeah, that was obviously a great emotional, dramatic game, adventure game.
Was it from someone an RPG fan?
It was actually Patrick Gann, since we're talking
Pat?
about him. Yeah,
because I got a couple of gifted games from Solosi. He gave me Yakuza 0. Which,
there is a winner.
Well, yeah.
that was on my list. Like I already have it on PS4, but I was totally gonna rebuy it and other Yakuza games to play on the deck, because that game is awesome. And he also got me Ys Oath in Felghana, which I have not played. I haven't played any of the older, more retro style Ys games. But honestly, I love Chained Echoes so much. My most anticipated game for next year outside of Final Fantasy 16 is Sea of Stars. So clearly I think I'm kind of growing into a retro kind of lover. So I got to play that.
But anyway, yeah, I'm excited to be able to get to cry some more with these games. Going to force me to cry with the To the Moon series.
Yeah, that's I hear that's a tearjerker of a game. I got some gifts too. An incredibly kind person gifted me Chained Echoes. Do you mind if I say who it is, Caitlin?
I think you just did.
Exactly. Yes, and my brother-in-law got me a copy of Psychonauts 2. Yeah, and I took advantage of some of the Steam sale things, because there were a few games that I missed out last year that I really wanted to play, like Tunic, for example. Pentiment has been on my list for a while. The one that I'm really excited about playing is The Case of the Golden Idol, because it's very reminiscent of Return of Obra Dinn. So I'm super excited about playing that. And yeah, I'm sorry that the game plays like crap on the Switch, Caitlin. Hey, what do you guys think? What do you think the chances are that Nintendo is going to have the Switch 2 announced at some point this year? I know this is a common question, but I'm just curious. What do you think the chances? Is it 50-50?
Announcement maybe. No way it would be coming out in 2023, I don't think.
They don't really seem to be in a hurry to release a Switch Pro or whatever.
Yeah. It's a shame, though, that they don't, because, the games run, and, say what you will about Xenoblade 2, really. But Monolith Soft did a really good job with Xenoblade 3, getting that game to look and run a lot better in handheld mode. But, yeah, I'm enjoying the Harvestella demo, but I immediately got that reaction of, oh, right, I'm playing in handheld mode, and that means, it's maybe 540p or something, and it's maybe running in 30 FPS, but it could be dipping below because it seems kind of choppy. So I don't know. I checked out the demo on Switch because I don't think you can play the prologue demo on Steam. I don't remember seeing an option for that. So I was like, okay, I'll play the demo on Switch, and then if I like it, I'll buy it on Steam. And I like it. So I'm buying it on Steam. Thank you, Nintendo.
Whenever there's an option to buy it on the Switch or the PC, it's always Steam.
Yeah.
I got Monster Hunter, the newest Monster Hunter, and it is on PC, and it's beautiful. No slowdowns.
I think the dream of the Switch Pro is dead. I think we're never getting a Switch
Pro.
I
think we recently got rumors that haven't been substantiated by Nintendo, but the rumors are that they at one point were going to do a PS4 Pro-esque upgrade, but then that got canned in favor of just making a successor. So that's where we are now.
And my money is still on it being called the Super Switch. I think they would be fools not to.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I got in a conversation with someone where we were just like, that they should just follow all of them. And it went Super Switch, and then the next one would be the Switch 64. And then it'd be the Switch Cube. And then my favorite one was Switch.
Oh, no.
SWIITCH.
No.
The Switch.
And then would the next one be the Switch U?
Switch U.
Sweet.
And then it's just Switch Wish. And then they can do 2 snaps.
Yes.
Oh, God.
Super duper Switch.
We should shut up because Nintendo will absolutely listen to this and take one of these names and say, hey, thanks for the good idea.
How did they know? The reason I know it's going to be called the Switch, and the reason why I know it's going to be called the Switch is because Nintendo loves the snap thing, the finger snap thing. They adore it. They love it.
It is awesome. It's very catchy.
It's very catchy, and they love it so much, and I cannot imagine that they will let it go. They will not learn their lesson from the Wii U. They will name it something Switch. Or the Switch something.
And the cycle of mothers going to GameStop, knowing nothing about video games, trying to get their kid the new Switch system and getting the old one will repeat.
Which is why I think it'll be called the Super Switch. I think they'll do it. I think they'll really lean into the nostalgia of that.
Or maybe it'll be the new Switch. Because remember the new 3DS?
Yeah, like the new 3DS, yeah.
They could release a really, really small version of the Switch just called like the Switch Boy.
The 2D Switch.
I want a bigger screen, not a smaller screen. I also want a screen that can, internals that can reliably do 720p, at least in handheld mode. That's what I want.
Yeah, it'd be nice if this system actually had some power behind it, but that's not how Nintendo rolls nowadays.
No,
I think it'll be
not.
I think it'll be an upgrade. I think it'll come out and you'll be like, wow, this is not great. But then they'll release like a new platformer for it, and people will be like, oh, this looks amazing. And that will be it, because Nintendo is all about gameplay. And at this point, I think that the performance has started negatively impacting the gameplay. And at that point, I think Nintendo needs to upgrade their system. But hey, we'll have lots of conversations about this later in the year. I suspect it will be a topic of conversation around E3 season. I mean, when they released the Switch, there was a very fast turnaround between announcement and release. So I guess we'll find out in a few months. At least we'll know for sure by the end of 2023 if the Switch 2 will be released in 2023. Anyway, so this is an episode of Random Encounter. We have lots more of them. We have the backlog of 2022. Some really good episodes in there. We're going to have lots more in 2023, but we are not the only podcast here at RPG Fan. We also have Rhythm Encounter, which is RPG Fans' music podcast. Last week was our best music of 2022 episode. It was really, really good. I heard some fantastic music. Actually, a Chained Echo piece.
A Chained Echoes piece. So go listen to that if you want a taste, but then also you can listen on YouTube and Bandcamp. And do it! I didn't talk enough about it, but the score is really good. It's really awesome.
Oh, it's an out-of-nowhere score. Like, the guy who wrote it is just like, where did this guy come from?
Yeah. I need more, though, now. I need more.
Yep. And coming up next week is Rhythm Encounter's 100th episode, which I am not going to spoil. It's a very special episode. We also have Retro Encounter, which just finished up Xeno Month with a ton of episodes focusing on Xenosaga. And last week, if you missed it, was the companion piece to our Looking Ahead episode of Random. So this was Retro looking back at the year that was. And I'm on that one, actually. It was a lot of fun talking about some of our favorite games from 2022 and some of the best experiences we had. So if you want to take a look back, that's a good place to do it. And coming up next week is going to be an interesting episode, which is going to be focusing on RPG Fans' Guide to Style. I'm going to leave you figuring that out. Speaking of style, we opened a store where you can buy t-shirts with our logo on it. So if you want to be like the stylish RPG fan, you can visit www.rpgfan.com/shop and take a look around. We have, like I said, t-shirts. We have, all kinds of things. Mugs. I drink from my RPG Fan mug all the time. So give that a look. If you'd like to get in contact with us here at Random Encounter, you can fire us off a message at podcast@rpgfan.com. I would love to hear from you if you have any ideas for future episodes. In fact, I'm just going to give a quick little shout out here. A gentleman by the name of Jeremy Arthur messaged earlier this week and requested to have Caitlin on to talk about Chained Echoes, saying that, Caitlin, it was a very well-written review and really, really wanted to hear your thoughts about it in your own voice.
Aw, thank you.
Yeah, and I got to fire off a message to him immediately being like, I'm talking to her about it right now. So yeah, if you want to get a little shout out on the show, yeah, fire me off a message. If you'd like to send me an email directly, you can do so at jlogan@rpgfan.com. I'm still figuring out what in the name of hell Mastodon is. Once I figure it out, I'll share my account on there. But that is not exactly a priority for post-Christmas week. But once it is a priority, I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to have a presence on an online forum that is not Twitter. Because, yeah, garbage fire.
Oh, it's so... Yeah, I'm on Twitter, but I'm not giving you my Twitter handle because I don't want people to go to Twitter with the way Twitter is right now. It's just not good. So you can email me at caitlina@rpgfan.com.
Cool. And Abe, where can we find you online?
I mean, I'm still on the Twitter, but I'll give you my Instagram instead. It's at Abe Kobylanski.
I don't want to shame anyone for being on Twitter. Twitter is an invaluable tool for many journalists and game fans and lots of other things. It's just that it's sort of, being on Twitter for me, it's sort of become like the leading source of news about Twitter, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to get found on Twitter these days. You don't want people to find you there.
Oh, God, things turn around so fast. Well, I guess they turn around so fast when you're driving a Tesla. Hey, so if you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your friends. Help us get the word out there. You can rate us on iTunes or your other podcast player of choice. Again, Caitlin, Abe, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I really appreciate you taking some time in your post-holiday haze and talking about these games.
No, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Happy 2023.
Yes, absolutely. And happy 2023 to everyone out there. And whatever you're going to be playing this year, have fun.